Hey, welcome to Barbershop Clips. This is a channel where you get to see really cool moments from the barbershop. I know the episodes are really long, but you can come here and enjoy really cool moments in short time as well. I hope you enjoy. What are some of the other brands where you felt like, either marketing interventions or innovation interventions kind of really
I think I was very lucky to actually have worked on brands that in some way or the other had big societal causes linked to it and had a big wave of purpose, which was inherently intertwined in it. And I think that's where I actually feel that, if people start resonating with what you stand for and why you exist, I think the way they then feel for your brands, it takes you away from that commoditization wave. Yes. Because you're suddenly able to separate yourself from other price warriors, right? And I think in that regard, whether it's Durex, you'd be surprised there was a time, today it's a much bigger brand where the share of mind was so much greater than actually the turnover it makes.
Correct.
So when I just came on the business, I was like, really? Is that how big it is? I always thought it was such a big brand because I'd never seen the numbers, And that's when condoms were under price control.
Correct.
So because of the price control, they could never invest on the business and it was a vicious circle. So we weren't investing, the business wasn't growing. So we said, never mind, let's actually look at really unlocking the premium end of the market because the mass end of the market was well capitalized by folks like Manforce.
Correct.
And then you say, what, there are two point of views to sex. You can either go the commoditization of women point of view, which is all about the chase, or you can actually really start talking and celebrating mutuality.
Correct.
And normalize sex and really talk about mutual pleasure.
And pleasure was Durex's
forte.
They held it from a product standpoint to ribs.
Absolutely.
And we are so proud of the work Durex does because we work with them very closely on it. But
absolutely.
What a brand.
Absolutely. So I still remember the Durex used to be the best recruitment hack for the company, right? Because it's such an aspiring brand for people to work on. And I still remember once I went recruiting students in one of the universities in DU, don't ask me the name, but where we said, Durex stands for great sex that moves you. And suddenly one young kid raised his hand and said, ma'am, any sex will move us because we are not getting any. So I was like, wow, that is indeed the reality of India. I said, wow, God bless you, my friend. This is indeed the truth.
Yeah, but that's such a, it was very brave what Durex did, frankly, in such a government regulated market where every advertisement goes through tremendous censorship.
Correct.
Online and offline.
Correct.
We do performance marketing for Durex. Boss, ads are very particularly managed and so on, right?
Correct.
But to go there and to not have a contraception first communication, but a pleasure first one at a premium level was brave. Like today it seems obvious. Of course, that's where the world was moving. But to do it 10, 15 years back was I think
but
brave.
I also gave a lot of credit to the many people who came together. And like whether you look at an actor like Ranbir, you also need, so for social change to happen, you also need to embody that change in people and then personify it for people, right? Otherwise, it becomes so difficult to take an esoteric idea and make it work for yourself day to day.
But talk a little bit about this. You speak about Kareena and Lakme very closely. Like even right now, you spoke about the faces for your brands.
Correct.
Nitish, for example, when he speaks, he's had a storied career at Reckitt.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for him, I met him once. And in that one meeting, he was so proud of this red and blue Harpic, red man and Harpic, blue man, and how they came together in this ad. And it's amazing how personification of the brand and the promise. Now you're talking about Ranveer.
Correct.
We have never done that at scale. We had Ashwin, we had Alaya, we worked with faces for a few months at a time. We never had the budgets. But talk a little bit about what did someone like a Ranveer do with Durex, and I hear that he writes his own scripts and he changes things at the last moment and does a lot of cool stuff as well.
Yeah, true. But I'll tell you what, it was interesting because Durex was at a point of time where it came out of price control. It already had a big share of mind because amongst marketers it was always perceived to be this extremely cool brand. But if you look back at India, condom penetration per se was very small.
Very small, correct.
Right?
Still is very small.
It still is very small. So therefore, if you were today a business head on condoms, your biggest problem statement is to expand the pie. And because your pricing is 3 or 4x the market average, you would go after the premium pie, right? And see, condom is a very interesting category because the usage of it is much higher when sex is not legit, okay? Because that's when people have multiple partners. Because it is fundamentally seen as a pleasure-killing category. right? Because it creates friction. There's a huge barrier to usage because it kills pleasure, right? Then you actually have to deep the one layer below and say, all right, it also prevents STD. It also can be delivered in a way where it doesn't kill pleasure, but it also protects you, right? So that you can actually live your life without really feeling the pressure. In that regard is when we realize that in India, if people aren't even going to talk about sex, leave alone go buy a product category in a manner which will be helpful. So I think in the last 5 years, probably what has given the sexual wellness category the biggest boost is online business.
Yeah.
Because it allows for discreet purchase.
Correct.
It allows for many more people to ask uncomfortable questions online or even to buy categories which are purely for pleasure.
Correct.
Whether it's lubes, it's play rings. But it's normalized the category online. But in that era, the online contribution was next to nothing. We had just started listing it on Snapdeal, and this is way back in 14.
Correct.
Right? That's when we actually realized here that if you have a mainstream actor who can actually go out there and talk about loving sex and making sure that he believes in mutual pleasure, So the whole film actually started. So, of course, there was a launch film which was about Durex, which is about really making the word Durex top of mind.
Yeah.
But again, you have to take it one step forward
Deeper,
and say, what do you really stand for? And that's when actually Ranveer did an interesting campaign with us in MTV, where he went and actually said, I love having sex. And guess what? So does everybody. Otherwise, we won't be a billion people.
Correct.
So why are we ashamed of it? And then he spoke about the Kama Sutra, the fact that it's part of our heritage. And the more openly we can talk about it, the more we'll normalize it, and the easier it'll become for us to practice safe sex.
Yeah.
I think those sort of campaigns really allowed the brand to stand for a very strong why, And I think that entire piece of work also explained to me personally that relevance building is probably the hardest but most important exercise if you really want to create hero products. Because, hero products are not just about Tom. Because someone can outdo you on Tom.
Correct.
I'll spend more money, I'll outdo you.
Correct.
But if you make the category relevant for me and show me why you're so superior, then you will have me forever.
Yeah. I think insight is outstanding. I'm sure, I want to ask you this before I actually tell my personal observation. Did you ever think whether a male voice like Ranveer or a woman's voice talking about women's pleasure, did you ever have that debate internally within Durex to say who should?
Not at that time, because see, Shantanu, it was also a right time for every conversation to be had. So the first conversation actually has to be from the lens of the guy who's either resisting the product or buying the product.
Correct.
And in a lot of cases, he's actually resisting the category, right? Because it's killing the pleasure for him.
Correct.
So that's when we felt that first approach it from the lens of a man, right? Then take it a notch further. Now, today I had also the privilege of working in Kutlam more recently on a brand like Sirona. Now, Sirona does a whole lot of conversation, which is to women, because along with menstrual health, you are also looking at sexual wellness, and you're looking at least normalizing periods and period pain.
Correct.
I think it's just about the right time.
Correct.
Because some conversations, if they are done ahead of their time, they don't resonate. Yeah. But if you take it one step at a time in a continuum, it falls in place.